Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go. Note: please be aware I only interacted with this lady a couple of times and didn't know about this until her party went up to the party room. One day at an outdoor climbing area in November 2021, a Karen had chosen to make her presence known to us. She had come in with a party of mainly kids. A rock climbing place is more suited for kids to climb. As early as a safety briefing, she had started complaining about how long she had to wait for harnesses to go on the kids. She and a couple other adults were watching the kids. The typical time you can expect for harnessing up and watching the safety briefing should take up to 30 minutes, and the person doing the harnesses was within that limit. She continues to complain throughout the briefing and throughout the 1-hour session she had booked with us. She complained about why we weren't doing our jobs, why she and potentially other non-climbers have to watch the video, whatever. After the hour was up, she and her group went up to the party room for their food, and I went to lunch. During lunch, my manager came into the break room complaining about said lady in question, who was complaining to the owners, franchised, about her terrible experience. I told him about what I knew, but it didn't need to be said since he already knew a majority of the story. The lady never paid up until 4 days later when the police threatened her over the phone that if she didn't pay, they would come to her house and arrest her. The only reason the police had her number was because we had her name, number, and address on file when she pre-booked the party. Near my school, I'm in year 7 or 6th grade for you dear Americans, there is an Asda. For my American friends, it's like a British Walmart. All the kids from my school go in there every day, but my school recently developed a new way of paying for stuff and not as many go now. Me and my 2 friends, names are 7 Isabel, were inside. We walked down to the biscuit section where the food is cheap and is also next to the bakery. After grabbing our stuff, we wandered down to the bakery aisle to see a 90-ish-year-old lady reaching for the last loaf of bread. She was taking her time and Siv, being the tallest, went forward to help the lady. Suddenly, we saw the Karen herself. She flew around the corner like an ice skater, shoved the old lady, and then ran off with the bread. Siv, being a tall, autistic, scary Russian female with dark glasses, followed the entitled mother to go have a chat, and me and Isabel went to help the old lady. Turns out, when that witch had shoved her over, she had shattered her pelvis. We called an ambulance and the police, and within minutes, the old lady was in an ambulance. And this is how the entitled mother's conversation went. One of the cops tells her, "Miss, we are going to ask you to put the bread down." "Why? I paid for this bread with my own money. It's mine." "We watched the surveillance footage. You didn't even pay for the bread after damaging somebody else for it." Then she got all sad. "My family has no money and we need food. This is the only thing my son can eat because he's allergic to everything." Bear in mind, a lot of what she was wearing was Gucci, and then both cops handcuffed her. "Ma'am, we are arresting you for assault and theft." She kept yelling and screaming, but she still ended up in a police car. Karma at its finest. A few weeks later, the old lady somehow got in contact with me and my friends, and she thanked us for helping. Turns out her husband is dying from terminal heart disease, and his favorite meal is her homemade salmon and cream cheese sandwiches. This story happened around a year ago and I had completely forgotten about it until earlier when I was playing a game of Warzone with my cousin over the internet, and he brought it back. I, male 35, had gone to the local bullseye looking to pick up a few things with my cousin, Tom, male 32, for a long night of gaming as neither of us had anything to do that Friday or Saturday night, and the then new Call of Duty Vanguard had just released. Not knowing how terrible this game was, we here hyped to get in as many hours as we could. As I carried my basket with balls, Doritos, and the biggest pack of pizza rolls I've ever seen, I happened to notice a singular PS5 sitting behind the glass in electronics. Walking up to Tom, I asked if he was planning on getting it, and he wasn't interested. He already had the new Xbox, so it's fair. I sent Tom to fetch an employee so I can collect my overpriced prize. Looking forward to those PS exclusive over the coming months. Everything goes swimmingly and I have bought the PS5. No sooner than I grab the bag and pick it up, a woman approaches. We will name her Susan as she wasn't good enough at her craft to be dubbed Karen. Susan interjects the closing niceties between myself and the store clerk with a panicked "Excuse me?" The three of us turn and the store employee asks if he can help. Susan says no, that will not be needed as she's looking to chat with me. Thinking this was an "I don't work here" lady in the making, I make sure she's aware I'm not a member of the Bullseye staff. Susan confirms she knows this as her voice continues to feign sweetness. Susan says, "I see you have the last PS5 they have in stock. Were you going to buy that?" To which I responded, "Actually, I already did. I'm stoked to finally have one." Susan replies, No. You can't have it. I need it. I'll pay you double what you paid for it." Now look, if I hadn't just spent ages trying to track one of these new systems down, I'd have just sold it to her at cost, but I wasn't able to find an RTX 3080 Xbox Series or PS5 at this point. Check today. So no amount of money could have convinced me to part with it. I informed Susan and she's absolutely not having it. All of the faint sweetness instantly gone. She demands I give her the PS5, and the store employee interjects, telling Susan if she continues to harass customers, he will have to ask her to leave. Susan turns and says, "I don't give a damn what you say. I'm going to get that PlayStation." However, I did use this moment to slip Susan and make a break for the exit. Reaching my car, and just as we are pulling out of the space, we spot Karen running. Thinking nothing of it, I dropped it into drive and put her to the exit. I added a photo of the make and model to show just how much of a sore thumb we will be on the roadways. About a mile to a mile and a half after leaving Bullseye, I hear frantic honking from behind and look up. If you guessed I saw Susan in her BMW SUV tailgating and swerving all over the highway, you'd be correct. Other than laughing with Tom, I ignored her entirely. Roughly 10 minutes pass and she's still right there on me when I hear sirens and notice the tailgate cherries and perries of a state police cruiser directly behind Susan. Rejoice. However, Susan pulls to the right lane and the officer continues on. How he's directly on my bumper and he's laying on the air horn being super obnoxious. So I pull over, and yep, he's there for me. Susan had also pulled over behind the officer, though I hadn't noticed. The officer approached and treated me like a possible DUI, and explained they had received a call about my vehicle swerving all over the road and driving at erratic speeds. After a couple of back and forths, he was convinced everything was fine and started to tell me to have a nice day when Susan, out of nowhere, screams, "Officer, arrest this man! He stole my PS5! I explained to the officer that I had bought the PS5 at Bullseye and what had happened with Susan. The officer was extremely confused but could see the PS5 sitting on the back seat was in my car. He asked if I could prove that it was mine and that I did in fact pay for it, to which Susan said, "Absolutely not. He knows I bought it and he grabbed it in the parking lot. Thank God you're here, officer." So having worked retail many years ago, I knew that my card number would be on the receipt, so I opened with, "Well, I also have the receipt if that helps." Which Susan, the dim-witted bird, she was immediately jumped on stating that I had stolen that out of her hands too. This is where I proudly exclaimed that all receipts show the last 4 digits of the card used to purchase things, as well as the first initial and last name of the card holder. Susan continued to state, "Yeah, and my name is on it." I pulled my driver's license, bank card, and receipt out, handing them to the officer. Everything matched, and the officer hands him back thanking me and immediately turns to Susan, who is now screaming, "Well, aren't you going to arrest him for being drunk? It was all over the road." The officer replies, "So you're the one who called us about a possible DUI?" And Susan proudly exclaimed, "Yes, now arrest him." Our officer immediately pulled out his handcuffs and slapped him on Susan as she, with a voice full of fear, asked what the hell he was doing. The officer explained that Susan was under arrest for making a false report, misuse of 911, and my state's law on stalking. Now while I got this wonderful PS5, Susan got her car towed. The full weekend in lockup, and when the dust finally settled, she pleaded guilty to making a false police report and harassment. I don't know what the terms were, but she was put on a 2-year probation and banned from the local bullseye until it completes. My work involves analyzing all kinds of data. This instance occurred around the time when our company was somewhat new, but still large enough to have 150 employees and rapidly growing. So far, our data analysis has been retail companies, travel agencies, or even the housing market. For the first time, we received a request to analyze health data from 5 hospitals in our area. The health data is very sensitive, so the raw data itself and the analytical results could not be shared via email or Dropbox. For the first time, my team gets to see that sensitive companies go through channels that have a lot of security to share the data between us and the client. These channels cost money, but nothing too expensive, which our organization couldn't afford. Something like $40 a month. 4 out of the 5 hospitals have this data sharing channel, which meant that my team was able to receive the raw data and also be able to provide the analysis via the same channel. The 5th hospital was new and they did not have this channel. Either our company or the 5th hospital needed to have this channel. So I raised a request with the accounts team to purchase this channel and it was denied. Myself and my manager both raise it again and also discuss it with the account supervisor, and it's approved verbally, but declined on the system once again after 2 weeks. We tried again for the 3rd time after discussing with the higher accounts manager, and still no approval at the end to buy this channel. It is declined and we have been told it's the hospital responsibility to share the data, and if we reach the hospital they ask us to reach the health ministry, which then asks us to get in touch with a local member of parliament and so on. So just a lot of bureaucracy that I shouldn't be managing. While this entire request of data sharing is being worked on, the time for us to receive and analyze this data is running out. We were waiting only on a single hospital's data which is ready to be sent to us, but only via an appropriate channel. So I've had enough. I found out from the health ministry email response while working on getting the hospitals to buy the data sharing system that the data can also be shared practically. Specifically, if I was to take a USB with me to get the data physically at the hospital and also return the output to the hospital the same way. This practical data sharing capability is deemed entirely safe. And that's what I started to do. Every Monday, I drive 30 minutes to the hospital at 11 a.m., go to their admin team to retrieve the data in my USB, and then drive back to my work reaching at 1 p.m. Then I go have lunch at 1 p.m. I repeat this same task again with our analytical output on Thursday. Our contract is to analyze the health data for the whole year. After doing this for 3 weeks, one of the upper management people whose office is opposite my desk start to think that I have been taking a very long time for lunch. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., he comes to my desk and asks if everything is okay, and why I was away from my desk for 4 hours. I tell him the whole story, and he is not happy at all. The cost of that data sharing system is nothing compared to the cost of paying my salary while I physically collect the data every single time. He puts the accounts team into their place by finding out that they approve of this system verbally each time and then deny it every time after a few weeks. And literally that day we have the system all purchased and then installed every night. Although I do miss the bi-weekly travel while listening to music to only do a copy-paste of files into and out of a USB drive. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.